ticket prices and all. But I've asked Brijesh Shreyam to come, so Brijesh most probably will come by around 11, but we'll start.
Good morning everyone. Today I'll take you on a journey through housing metamorphosis. In this exploration, I am reshaping iconic structures into high-rise residences, aiming to spark a deeper conversation about monotony. I'll be sharing two narratives that transform renowned architectural masterpieces into homes. These narratives breathe new life into buildings that were originally not designed for everyday living, inviting us to question the ordinary. So the first story unfolds on the bustling streets of Ahmedabad during a routine evening stroll, featuring Nagasai as a common individual and me as Asha, an architect. It brings out the lasting impression such an apartment building can have on an ordinary individual.
You know, these daily evening walks through Ahmedabad can get so monotonous, don't you think?
I hear you, Nagasai. It's the same routine every day. Past these rows of conventional buildings lining up the road. Nagasai and Asha continue to walk, and as they round the corner...
But hold on a second. Look at that. It's like a surprise amidst all this monotony.
Whoa, you are right, Nagasai. It's like a twist in the tale of these ordinary buildings.
And look closer, Asha. Balconies stretch out like they are reaching for the sky, open and airy.
I see what you mean, Nagasai. The facade is playful. It's as if they are an extension of the deep recessed windows, much like the Ronshaw Chapel.
What's that?
Architect Lee Corbusier's masterpiece. Curves, light, shadow. Much like what we might see inside as I imagine the interiors bathed in soft and filtered light through stained windows and the gap between the slab and the walls.
Oh, I see. Just imagine living over there.
In a sudden moment of astonishment, Nagasai and Asha began to identify objects and let their imaginations run wild. Imagine having breakfast in that curvy corner, practicing yoga in some of the nooks while studying in others, watching TV in a cozy space with a view outside or beds tucked in the alcoves, creating a cave-like experience. How about a playful gargoyle waterfall for some splashy fun, or even a library amidst the clouds? The possibilities are endless.
The building would be like a wonderland, and the life must be like a carnival in there.
You are onto something, Nagasai. This design challenges the mundane. It's intriguing how they have created something so different.
I wonder what the interiors would look like.
Nagasai and Asha managed to sneak into the building, and as they explore further,
Asha, look at these deep windows. They have filled the smaller ones with books and turned the larger alcoves into cozy reading nooks. Just like your dream library in the clouds.
they continue the exploration. It's the cylindrical shaft transformed into kitchens as we step inside. It's like a culinary hub right here, and the aroma is incredible. Do you catch the smell of halwa or rich curry flavor, or maybe both being whipped up right somewhere? Food has this wonderful way of bringing people together, and these kitchens are just doing that. Nagasai takes a deep breath, savoring the aroma. And as the adventure unfolds, they stumble upon, Nagasai, you won't believe this. Another shaft has been turned into a vertical pool. We can go scuba diving right here. Just put on your costume, pull the lever, and plunge into the depths of the water, with windows revealing the underwater world.
No way. This place keeps getting better. It's wonderful to see how they have transformed every corner into something unique. It's like having a piece of art as your home. And look at that small alcove. Is it a vertical garden?
You are right, Nagasai. It's about the sense of discovery, the feeling of finding a hidden gem in the midst of the ordinary. This building has redefined urban living. As they leave the building, their hearts are full of wonder, and the memory of this extraordinary place stays with them.
You know, Asha, the memory of this building will stay with me. It's a reminder that even in our everyday routines, life can sprinkle a little magic.
Absolutely. It's a testament to the power of architectural innovation to break the monotony.
I bet this building will become legendary when I tell my friends, a high-rise that dared to be different in the midst of the ordinary.
Hey,
Why settle for the boring, right?
The encounter with the Rosha-inspired high-rise turned a routine city stroll into an extraordinary journey. A memory that would stay with Nagasai and Asha for years to come, each time they passed by that building. It was a vivid reminder that monotony can be shattered by creating something memorable, that intends to go beyond the visuals but also through experiences in the most everyday moments. The second narrative envisions the building in its original state. Joining me on this journey is Isha, an architect as well. Together we go on an exploration to an apartment complex that has been generating buzz in the city, while also delving into the fascinating potential of signboard advertising to shape our perception of what makes an ideal home.
I have been seeing these signboards and large hoardings about the new high-rise in Ahmedabad that's been making waves. It's supposed to be a modern architectural marvel.
I'm always up for exploring new architectural wonders. Where is it located?
It's right in the heart of the city. Let's go check it out.
As they drove to the heart of Ahmedabad, they spotted a beautifully crafted signboard about the building on the way. They stopped by to read. It mentioned that this high-rise is inspired by the Hawa Mahal in Jaipur, a tribute to Rajasthan's rich heritage.
It mentions that the building blends tradition with modernity, creating a unique living experience in Ahmedabad.
As they absorbed the information from the signboard, Isha and Asha felt an even deeper appreciation for the high-rise inspired by the Hawa Mahal. Their excitement grew as they drove closer to the building.
Look over there, Asha, another one.
This signboard not only provided a historical context but also introduced a healthier way of living by promoting various facilities that bring people together. This deepened their perception, seeing as a meaningful link between Jaipur's heritage and the vibrancy of Ahmedabad.
Living in such a healthy and refreshing environment that detaches us from the hustle and bustle of city life must be amazing.
As they approached the entrance,
look at that. It's as if they've transplanted a slice of Rajasthan's heritage right here.
absolutely Isha, and see the facade. It's a visual feast, like the honeycomb windows of the original Hawa Mahal.
Exactly. Imagine living here. It's not just a building, it's a connection to the rich cultural heritage of Jaipur. Let's explore the interiors.
Come here Isha and see this central courtyard transformed into a shared garden for residents, where they are growing their own herbs and vegetables. Let's head to the terraces. They should be open and breezy.
I suppose that's what the signboard meant by a healthy lifestyle. And there's also a stargazing observatory on the rooftop, equipped with telescopes and comfortable lounges. It's like a celestial getaway.
I love this idea, and it looks like they have incorporated interactive art installations throughout the building, turning it into a living art gallery.
Living here would offer something different every day. One day you might find someone painting or setting up exhibitions, and the next there would be workshops for stargazing and telescope use. Life would be incredibly dynamic here, don't you think?
Isha, thoughts align so well, and I completely agree with you. Come see these spacious sleeping areas with the jarokas, and don't miss the intricate facades concealing the secret storage spaces, like the hidden compartments in an old palace.
This place keeps surprising me with every turn, and for adventurous residents like us, there's even a wall climbing area on one of the floors, adding an exciting element to their daily routines.
All this makes the building so exciting. It's not just a place to live, it's a place to experience.
Absolutely, Asha. It's a blend of heritage, innovation, and imagination. This high-rise is redefining urban living in the most creative way.
As Isha and Asha left the high-rise, they couldn't help but carry not only the visual memory but also the rich history and significance of the building with them. The signboard enriched their experience, making it a truly memorable encounter with architecture that broke the monotony of the urban landscape in the heart of Ahmedabad by creating a lasting impression. These hypothetical scenarios challenge us to reflect on the larger questions of monotony. And lastly, I would like to open up discussion surrounding the following statements and questions. First is, buildings or apartments that an architect finds interesting are also intriguing to a common individual, like in the case of Nagasai's encounter with the Rosha Chapel inspired high-rise. So, if an apartment breaks the monotony for an architect, it undoubtedly does the same for a common person. In the pursuit of breaking monotony, Should architects always aim to push the boundaries and create something entirely new, or do small changes within existing norms bring the same impact? Should this innovation be utilitarian, or on the other hand, more radical that might not be immediately practical or functional, but are guided by a vision of an improved and idealized state of being? Do these examples primarily break the monotony on a contextual or an urban scale by standing out differently, or do they have the potential to stand alone as extraordinary structures in any setting? How can we extrapolate their original success to different cities and cultures? And lastly, is the desire to break the monotony in architecture inherently tied to the human need for newness and surprise? Or can it also be seen as a response to increasing homogenization of urban landscapes? Are we witnessing a new era of architectural diversity and experimentation, or is this a temporary deviation from the norm? Thank you.
Okay, so of course in the morning session we have more presentations on monotony, banality and monotony. But maybe what we could do after every presentation is at least discuss the unique or the questions that might be asked in this presentation which might not get asked generally when we are discussing monotony, which we will discuss more at length. So I think the method by which you are addressing monotony is by like taking a Ronshaw and taking a Hawa Mahal and sort of making a building out of it. In a way, it's like a shortcut, right? I mean, one assumes that let's take a building which is already great and make a high-rise out of it, and like you're saying that if the original building is great, then the apartment made out of it will also be great. So I think we should have a discussion on that, because that is something that is specific to this presentation and not the other presentations.
I have a question.
Yes.
When we talk about Roshan or the Hawa Mahal, we like those buildings because we go as tourists. Will we like to live there? I mean, Roshan, for example. I'll go there, it's calm, I'll sit for there. But I'm going as tourist. My mind is that I'll be here for a time and then leave. Will I love to live there? I mean, because these two things are very different.
So I think that like even when choosing these examples, we had our discussions that how would a common person, even not as a tourist, but how would a common person would see example of a Roshaw to live in, like a Roshaw chapel high-rise. So, but the thing is, when we see that building in itself, it is not meant for that everyday living, but it has those qualities. But the moment we start putting functions into it, we forget about the kind of light or the calmness that we get in a building which is not designed for everyday living. So what if we start putting functions to those buildings and then see that if the building in its original state has that potential, what will happen if you start putting the plumbing, the electrical, or all the basic functions that end up being in a typical apartment block. So to merge the everyday functions of, like if you just imagine a building which is meant for everyday living, it's one of the tower blocks. But on the other hand, if it's not meant for an everyday living, it's something like a Roshaw chapel. So when you start putting those things in a Roshaw chapel, would you be still able to achieve that quality of a space and also have, the functional aspect of it?
I think the generic aspect of that question is that if I have jalebi once a week, I might love it. If I have to have jalebi for every meal, will I like it? Is the question being asked, right?
I also think that, for example, Hawa Mahal is a palace. People used to stay there, so it is meant for living. But it was only the royal family that would stay there, which made it not banal, or it made it special. If common people started staying in Hawa Mahal, then it wouldn't be Hawa Mahal.
Yeah.
And other than that, I also feel that what is interesting to us as architects might not necessarily be interesting to a non-architect or a non-designer.
Okay.
So the way they look at a building, like a residential complex, a Rosha chapel or a Hawa Mahal apartment, as architects or as designers, we might be intrigued by it or interested by it, but I don't think that common people or non-architects would be really attracted to it.
I have a question. When you chose these two buildings, did you ask any non-architect?
So the first example that I took was from my own bias, and the second one is where I was struggling to find that example. So like I went around and asked non-designers, like the household help or people around who are not in designing, to see like what kind of example they associate with in terms of the Indian context. So Hawa Mahal was basically what came from the perspective of.
So I think two questions came up, which are part for the common discussion also. What you are asking, what you are suggesting is that it is an acquired taste. I don't know if anyone has had durian, for example.
It's like jackfruit.
It's like jackfruit, but jackfruit is like a milder version. I think there are a lot of people who hate jackfruit also. It's like there are some things which are acquired taste, and you are saying that all our discussions of space or what is nice is it's like a connoisseur of space, and the common person does not, may or may not enjoy it. But so if I were to give counters for both, so when I talked about the jalebi being interesting only infrequently, I love my cup of filter coffee every day morning. I want that, I grind my beans fresh in the morning. I want to have it, and I have it every day. But I still crave for that same thing every day. So maybe it is fascinating to ask, are there some things that can be an everyday craving? And are there some things which should only be a special thing? That by making a city full of Roshans, will it sort of kill the building? Or can it be like filter coffee? I'm sure you all also have some things that you would love every day, to have every day. Right? But then how do I make the distinction between the jalebi and the filter coffee? Or are we saying that that would be different for different people? Maybe someone loves the jalebi every day.
Maybe she can just say that people who like jalebi every day will buy jalebi. I mean, the people who want Roscoe experience every time will buy
Right.
jalebi.
But I think it's an important question that is the everyday special different from the infrequent special? Right? In all our lives, there are some things that happen infrequently, and it's extremely important that they are infrequent. That's what makes them unique. So maybe then the question is to, or the challenge is to find the everyday special, which is special despite being the everyday.
But then I think, like in terms of housing, it would still be unique if there's just one in Ahmedabad and not multiple of Rosha chapels, like in apartments or anywhere. I think just one makes it still less monotonous than.
So that maybe I think we'll take for the common discussion that we'll have after all the presentations on Banal or monotony. But I think it's it's an important question to ask that for you, is this special only because there is one of it? Or is it special because it is inherently special?
But then we need to draw a distinction between like something being special and something being banal.
Okay.
Because yeah, maybe having a city full of ranchas will make it less special, but it may not necessarily make it as monotonous as having a city full of stacked apartments.
Okay. So maybe on that note, let's go to the next presentation because it's also about monotony and being banal. And of course, we'll continue this discussion because that's what the first session is about.
I would like you to scan this QR code.
I hope there's no monotonous virus.
So you will see a thumbs up wala sign in the page.
Yeah.
So I am Suhas Solanki and I am trying to look at the factors that make the external facade, the visual facade of the current housing projects banal or not banal. So for a person or an architect, the very first thing that they see in a building is the external facade of it. And if you look at the current housing projects, you will see options like this, in which there is highly repetition of balconies, use of pale colors, monotony, etc., etc. So for this, you can say that there's another word which is banal.
So, sorry to interrupt, but what do you want us to do when
So,
this? I click on it when.
No. After 2 to 3 slides, there will be a question.
Okay.
Haan.
Fair. Thanks. Yes.
So, what is banal? So, if we literally look at the definition, then according to it, in a way, both monotony and banal refers to a same thing, which is being not interesting and boring. So, if you see, then does monotonous and being banal is the same thing? Like if we look at the current apartment housing, then we can say yes. So in that context, is a non-monotonous building which is having different textures, element of water, different context in itself. So is a non-monotonous building a non-banal building? Then what about Jami Masjid? It is entirely monotonous in terms of the openings, the material used in it. But will you say that this is a banal building? I don't think so. And in the same way, the national fisheries, which is having a totally new and original idea, there are different colors used in it, but I think it is a banal building. So, by looking at that, we can get a matrix of monotonous, non-monotonous, banal and non-banal, in which we can see that it is not necessary for a building to be banal if it is a monotonous building. Now, I would be showing some examples of the buildings in which you have to decide whether it is banal or not banal. In this, there is a flat facade, and compared to this, the balconies are moved out and there is an underscoring beyond each balcony. I would request that you are not supposed to compare these two. you have to identify each building individually. What now? The balconies are totally staggered, and on addition there are variation in colors inside the balcony. What if the entire building is made out of concrete and then there are colors? Or there is a brick and concrete combination. So, which building is a banal or a not banal building? Please vote into your mobile.
So you are asking for non-banal, right? Not non-monotonous.
Yes.
So if the fisheries building was here, you would want us to, according to you, it is banal.
Has everyone voted? Yes. So as we can see, number 4 and number no.
Yeah.
So as we can see, number 4 is towards non-banal and number 1 is towards totally being banal. So is the flat facade the reason for the building for being banal? And we usually see that we architects have a personal bias towards being a brick and concrete combination of the building. But still, the 6th option got a lesser amount of votes compared to the 4th and 5th. So, what are the aspects which make a building banal or not banal? In the same way, this is a building in which there is a pale greyish color and totally repeating balconies and all. And what if we change it to brick? Now the openings are modified, and what if we add another layer of a jali wall? So in these options, what according to you is banal?
You start speaking, it will change.
So as we can see that the option 4, in which the only difference between option 4 and option 3 is that addition of the jali walls. So can we say that the well articulated facade makes a building facade non-banal? Is that what we are seeking about it? And on the other hand, the option 1 got the least votes. So is it that just by the difference between option 1 and option 2 is that the brick is painted in grey, so it doesn't show the originality of the brick itself. So does doing that make it more banal? If we look at this building, then in this the windows are totally same, but compared to this, the module of the windows are changed. Now what if we add another layer of texture to it and then entirely change the form of the building itself? So according to you, which of it is banal or not banal? Yes. So, as we can see that even after having entirely the same material in option number 2, the option got a really high vote of being non-banal just by staggering the windows. So, does staggering the windows makes the building non-banal? So the major question arises is, what are the aspects through which we can make a housing project banal or not banal? The need for an architectural language, deciding a rule to adhere while designing. For example, in the yellow colored building that you saw, you saw that there were 3 colors used and the windows were staggered, so that none of the edge meets the edge of the wall, and each of the balcony had its own identity. So does making that kind of a rule made that building look non-banal? What if we had a separate concept for the facade itself? Or making the buildings proportionate. For example, what I showed is all the buildings were 4-story apartments only. So, is the height the factor that those buildings were non-banal? Because what if I keep on repeating those buildings on top of each other? So, will the option that you selected as non-banal become a banal building if I have repeated it 2 to 3 times, one on each other?
Okay. So, how would you categorize the 2 buildings of the previous presentation? The Rochon one and the Hawa.
The Rochon in its originality.
No, not in
The high-rise Rochon.
Yeah, the high rise.
I think that the high-rise Rochon would be a non-banal building.
Okay.
Yes.
And the Hawa man?
That also, it would be non-banal only.
Okay.
Yes.
You're playing it safe as in.
Because in Rochon, what I think is there was breaking of monotony, as well as we architects have a personal bias towards it. So in our mind, it's like, this is Rochon and it's a nice architecture. In some sense, we have a preconceived notion about it. And another thing is, it also breaks the monotony using the different types of window openings, use of colors, and that the roof on top. So I think because of that, it will be a non-banal building.
I think it brings up the same question which had come up in the last presentation also, and he's also talking about, it's about the number of times we repeat. Because that's why he's saying, I'm showing a 4-story building. Now if I keep repeating that one on top of each other, and in her case, if we repeat the same high-rise multiple number of times, so the question goes there, is the number of repetitions making a building that right now we are saying is not banal?
But I think even when there are repetitions there, like in the example he showed of a mosque where there are repeating arcades as a facade, we also have, I think, a loyal reference to a heritage.
Can you put that slide up? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
So, I mean, as a heritage building or heritage references, I mean, to an extent, we can't say we don't like a building because it refers to our past and
No, the
things.
four together.
So I think because of that also, like even in her case, because it alludes so strongly towards Hawa Mahal, because of that itself, I think people wouldn't find it non-banal, just even though it has a strong repeating element.
So what are you saying in this categorization that he has done for monotonous and banal? Which of the four are you saying is an architect's bias, maybe, that people might not consider it the way he is putting it?
I guess the masjid.
You are saying the mosque, people would find it banal and monotonous.
I mean, for us we know its importance, so we have great history.
Which is what she was saying.
But for people maybe.
I think for that reason only people would also not find, I mean because I mean as a heritage building, everyone are aware of its importance. Whereas like Ronsha or something, the significance of it is more prominently felt by architects than non-architects.
Right.
So then in that case, I think it's non-banal for people, like for the common people as well, and not just architects. Despite it being
I have like a question. In this masjid, if I remove all the garden and if it's not curated, if it's a khandar, if it's like a ruin, then I guess वो heritage वाला tag भी चला जाएगा शायद.
I think more people will go to that place, especially because it becomes more valuable.
Not us.
Yeah.
I think because of the tag that it is a heritage thing, it still stands valuable for non-architects as well.
I'm saying if it is a ruin, it does not have heritage.
It stand even more valuable.
Because in Ahmedabad also there are many ruins. You would have also not went there. You would have gone to Jama Masjid, but you would not have gone to, for example, there are many mosques apart from Jama Masjid in Ahmedabad, which are now in a very bad condition.
Right.
You would have also not gone there.
So
It has heritage ka tag.
There is some merit to saying that the heritage tag makes you value it.
Yeah, I think not just for architects, but for non-designers as well.
So we should give heritage tag to monotonous buildings because then suddenly we will start looking at them.
Developers do brand it like that. It does have, like there are like a lot of advertisements where you can see that, like let's say for example a clubhouse is being designed like that in a housing society. They do brand it like that. And
Yes, they do brand it like that, but heritage people are not. No. Like the Hawa Mahal example in the previous. So if a developer actually does that Hawa Mahal thing, maybe people will buy it for the associational value if they value the original Hawa Mahal, which maybe some of your arguing is being valued because it is on the tourist map and on the heritage tag. That like if I compare say a Fatehpur Sikri with a Champane. Now Champane recently got the UNESCO heritage tag, and after that the number of people going have increased. So there is some truth in when we say that the moment something gets a tag, we start valuing it in a particular way. Maybe once something becomes old also we start tendency to value it more because it is in ruins or it is old. But what about the fisheries wala building? Yours but Banal. Okay. What do people think about it?
I think common people would tend to find it interesting because it is different. As architects, we wouldn't value it, yes, but I think for common people, since it is completely different, it has a direct image of a flaring image of a fish. Because of that, I think people find it interesting.
Kids will find it more interesting.
Yeah.
What?
Kids will find it more interesting.
More interesting. Okay.
But I think the moment it's repeated across the city, it will lose that charm to it. Yeah, it will fall into monotonous for sure.
I don't
If it does kind of repeat itself, then I think the value. So again, it comes back to the number of it.
No, but then I think given the historical side, Champaner, having a city full of mosques, like she's saying,
so
will also do
the
that
value
to
it
anyone.
I have another question. So are we implying that non-banal makes a building interesting? Is it necessary that if a building is non-banal, it has to be aesthetic or interesting? I think the fish building is non-banal, but I don't find it interesting, or I don't think it is aesthetic. But
Although he is calling it banal.
yeah, that's what I'm asking. So is non-banal interesting? Are we equating it to that?
Non-banal is interesting.
Yeah. Are we saying that all non-banal buildings are interesting buildings?
How did you define the difference? What was your definition of different definition of banal and monotonous?
So for monotonous, it's a same thing that keeps on repeating. So in, for example, in Jami Mosque, it is repeating, but it's giving a because of the proportion and all, it's non-banal building.
So monotonous definition we got. You are saying that if the same thing is repeated again and again in the same sequence or using the same pattern, it is monotony.
Yes.
What is non-banal?
In non-banal, the building should be interesting.
Okay, so his definition of non-banal is interesting.
But then I thought banal was something that was out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
And that need not be interesting.
Banal or non-banal?
Non-banal.
So the banal, the actual definition of the banal is something which didn't have the originality and therefore boring. So,
So are you saying that fish building doesn't have originality?
It is original, but still it is banal.
Why is that? So we are all asking. It's not like a review. It's an open discussion.
And then I'd also like to connect it back to Ancha's presentation where she made a high-rise out of Rasha. I think it was very interesting,
Yes.
but it was not original. Then how would you place that?
But I think in Rosho, so I think in Rosho we have a preconceived notion about the actual Rosho itself.
Okay.
And because of that, we can say that it's a non-banal building. But this is the fish wala building is being for the first time.
So it's non-banal.
That's not
But then Hawa Mahal was also original and people still say it's not banal. Like if the originality is a question for the record.
I also think it is because we as designers look at banal as something which is not cool or not acceptable. Like we cannot make a building that's banal, which is why every building we don't like, we put it in the banal category or we don't approve of. Not approving Ronsham Chapel is.
You need guts to do that.
But to call a fish building banal, it doesn't take a lot of.
That's true. They're making a high-rise out of Rasha. It's also, I know a lot of people who would, like architects, who would find that is not something even.
Sure. We just need to call maybe Smith here. He will take severe objection to that problem. What do you think?
But then in that case, we take offense to the fact that Ronsha is being developed as a concept, but the fact that it's being converted to any building apart from a chapel is an original idea, right?
Yeah.
So in that way, we are addressing a new approach towards, even though the building exists, in terms of it, you're changing it in a lot of ways. You're picking up elements out of it or the character of the space, but it transforms itself completely different from what the building exactly is. It's not like we are adaptively reusing the building itself. So in that way, I think it's still an original concept that develops.
It might be fascinating to do this poll that you took right now, or maybe even this building, if you take it to non-architects, take it to the street and find out what their reactions are to this thing, what do you think would happen?
So I think non-architect people will still find this interesting, a non-banal building.
I don't think so.
No, I think that, see, in this building they are like, we are living in a forest, there's a waterfall under it. They'll like living in a place like this. So because of that, I think they'll find this building very interesting. And to some extent, for the 1 or 2 times, people might feel that this is a non-banal building because there's a fashion or something new is made.
That will get the most vote.
If you ask a non-architect person, highly chance that will be a non-banal building.
This did happen also for the case of the Thailand's elephant tower. Like people found, because it looks like an elephant and all. Maybe proportionately as architects we criticized it a lot, but people of these cities did find it very interesting.
Then what kind of building should we make? I mean, like what we find not banal or what people find not.
What is your
No, I'm
doing the
asking.
people one might be a bit easier.
What?
I think doing the people one might be a bit more manageable. Sellable and manageable, because doing it from the architect's perspective, it's.
You're saying, since many of you are saying that this fisheries building would be fairly popular.
Now you're saying make more of fishes?
I
wouldn't agree with that. I think we should take our own stand on non-banal nature of the building and take decisions according to that.
But if the house has to sell to the user, I'm saying this particularly because it's a developer-oriented housing, where you have to sell it to a user. You find it interesting, but people wouldn't buy it because they don't find it interesting.
So in a way,
what is the point of companies and then to what their decisions
That's the job of the architect to kind of make his own concept.
So you design the building the water for the falling waters, and people don't like it as much as a fisheries building. It doesn't sell. As an architect, you would be happy that you designed a building like that, but if it doesn't sell and remains in not use, is it worth putting so much?
Would you be happy to live there for 5 years in fisheries building, or you would be happy to live in falling water for 5 years?
For 5 years, I think both building will become monotonous after a point because your life is the same. You see the same.
So it depends how much time you use the building. Does it?
In both buildings you're using, especially as a house, you're using it for the same purpose, 5 years. The question of monotony over time, I think, unless the building keeps dynamically changing, it has become difficult after
So
a point.
then you are saying after you graduate from CEPT, after 10 years it would be monotonous?
For a house, right now we're not visiting this building every day, or we are not living in the building every day. So,
I think how much time you live in the building defines the definition of monotony. Because he also said that the repetition, how much time a particular thing is repeated defines monotony. So, likewise, how much time you have spent in a building may also define a kind of monotony.
so then how do we address that in a housing project when you're going to be living there for a very long period of time? So, does that mean that over a period of time you're saying it is monotonous either ways, or it is
No, I am
monotonous?
asking that when you are saying that for a fisheries building it would be something new, so for some time it would be interesting, and falling water may not be interesting or something. So then what is the criteria of monotony apart from repetition?
So I think one discussion we had during our studio was also the difference between novelty and monotony, because novelty asks the question of time. That the other way of asking the question is that is the fisheries building fascinating to look at or to live in? And is there a do we want to make a distinction between buildings that are fascinating to look at and buildings which are meaningful to live in? And if you're saying that it's great to look at, and maybe like you buy a new phone or a new shirt, and for a few days you're like extremely careful with it, and then that novelty wears off. But then on the other hand, are we claiming that there are other buildings which grow on you over a period of time? That when it becomes old, you become more fond of it?
The category of old, I mean, if it's thoda old, then it is not good. But if it's like historically old, it's good.
I think that discussion becomes very tangible if I take non-architectural examples to begin with. So please think of any object that you purchased whose value wore off after a month or 2 or 5 months, and think of some object which you purchased which you grew more fond of after 6 months, or even after 1 year you are in fact more fond of it than you were when it was new. Can you think of?
So the second would be the leather. Patina grows on to a leather item.
Okay. So yeah, if I take leather shoes, it goes through an interesting trajectory. Maybe first few days any dust or anything and you feel bad about it, and then so maybe the graph goes down and then
it kicks off.
It kicks off after a point in time.
Is it the Banal is basically something which is like defined and finished product. Like you cannot add on. So that is a fish which cannot be added on until it falls into an articulation thing. But in non-Banal, maybe it is more of growing, or there is an opportunity of adding of something always.
So maybe the part of static and dynamic thing. If you see the falling waters across 4 seasons, it would be much more interesting than any of the buildings that are shown. So I think it is also an aspect of static and dynamic thing that how a building transforms itself after a certain period in time. Maybe that also can be a criteria.
I feel to have more positive outcome on this matrix that you've created, you could have had the same palette. Suppose if you are considering institutional building or a religious building, then compare all of them with the same palette. So if you're comparing residence, then have all residential. Then I think we'll have a better perspective for what we're looking at. So this is completely a different palette, and that is why the reviews are ranging very.
Okay, I think we have 2 more presentations on the same topic of monotony and Banal. Let's do that and keep having these discussions. So we have to. It's a good opportunity. I think everyone can then come in.
I'm going to share my story about when I started my journey of finding what Banal means and what kind of questions I had when I was finding it and talking with people. So this all started from the question I had that when we see the old city, or like for example old city of Ahmedabad, where there is kind of a homogeneity, even the plans, the type of layout, the character of the building is similar. And if I talk about cities like Vienna or Rome, even the facades have a kind of similarity. Still that homogeneity looks aesthetically appealing on urban character. But when we talk about the homogeneity seen in the new housing happening in the modern city, we find it banal. Why is it like that? So first, obviously, I searched what's the dictionary meaning of banal. So it was not interesting, or which has lack of originality. So for example, when you see these 2 pictures, Are you able to see them? What do you think? Are these two buildings looking like different? Are they standing out?
Yes.
Okay, and when you see this, do you still think that those buildings are looking interesting, they're looking different?
Maybe less.
They're still looking different. So then, are we thinking that when we make things different, then it is not banal, and when it is not different, we find it is banal? So, is banal in correlation to buildings around or correlation to the notion we have of different? Or if you look at this image, where this building, the concrete building in Coal City, do you find that this building, because it's not matching the character or the context around, is it looking interesting or it's looking boring? What do you think?
Boring.
It's looking boring. So then, we were thinking that making different building will work. It will make things not banal. Here this building is different, but it's different from the context and we find it boring. So is it that banal also depends on the context? I mean, like, we have some preconceived notions for certain contexts, and if that building does not match that context, we find it boring. Okay, I have a question for you guys. What do you like more, Old City or Sindhu?
Old City.
Okay. Wow. So, what things about Old City do you like? What characteristics of Old City do you like?
The carvings.
Any other characteristics which makes Old City interesting?
The narrow lanes.
Okay.
The informality.
Human scale.
And if we consider carving the motifs to be very interesting, if in this, are you able to see that image? If I remove, if there are even buildings in Old City which do not have carving, do not have any kind of motif. So is that fabric still looking boring?
It has no carvings.
No carving.
It's interesting. I can't make out from here that you have removed the carvings, which means it looks still interesting. Old City is interesting.
So is it like something inherent character which that buildings have which makes it not boring?
It's also the chaotic and lively aspect of the lifestyle in that place also at my mind.
So then it's not just visual, something more than visual.
The activities that happen in the space.
Sorry.
How much chaos is good chaos?
Yeah, you have lifestyle in Sindhu.
The chaos created by humans is far better than the chaos created by cars and vehicles. So maybe that is something.
So then, if like Pushpendra said he likes Sindhu, why does people like Sindhu?
It represents globalization. It reaches out to more than
Wide
the
road.
development of countries.
Wide roads.
Wide road. Nice streets with having a nice street lights.
You said it's because of globalization. So then we think that maybe globalization can make buildings or make the character look interesting. That's why maybe people like Sindhu. But when we talk about globalization, there is like the boundary of originality or the context blurs when we talk about like globalization. So if I see this image, do you think that this building is going with the context around, or it's looking like bizarre or alien?
Out of place.
It doesn't look alien, but it doesn't look like it's built with the context.
So then is globalization making things, because same kind of building, same kind of architecture is happening everywhere. We find that now there's kind of a monotony which was not there in old city because it had something contextual. So then is it that if we have local material or local, like responding to the culture, climate there, then maybe we can make things which are not boring? I don't know, I'm also even asking, I don't have answers. So when we were talking previously that the things when they become old, like not historically old, but thoda old, then we find it key. If something new or trending comes, we get attracted towards that. We forget the old. So is that the reason, like some kind of thing, if we keep on doing it and now there are new kind of experiences in the market, so we are not liking the old. That's why the things are becoming boring. Or as everyone was talking, that repetition makes the things boring, that when we see these kind of buildings at a similar kind of repetition of floor or repetition of same kind of plan in all the flats, or I could say at a certain level even repetition of experience which people feel in this housing. So is repetition the reason, or is the repetition only visual monotony which we were talking till now, कि सेम चीज दिखती है या बहुत सारी बार स्टैक कर दिया? For example, if I see this, do you find that this house right now is boring? But if I see this, do you think that it is still that interesting?
I don't think so.
Is repetition making things boring, or is high-rise making things boring? But right now we were just talking about visual monotony, that if we break the visual monotony, we can deal with the problem of Banal. Or is it even about the experiential monotony which people are feeling? Like we have same kind of leisure. Like if I talk about Ahmedabad, the majority leisure we have is either we go to some cafe or we have riverfront, very, very less public spaces. So it's that same kind of leisure, same kind of amenities which are given in the new housing, one clubhouse, one swimming pool, and that's it. Is these kind of things making the things boring? Or is it lack of human interaction which is happening in the new housing, which is making things boring? Like we don't have more neighborly interaction or human interaction. Is that which is making things boring? So when I was having these kind of questions, I went and asked people around in CEPT and outside CEPT, and I got really very interesting answers from people. So I would like to do that. So when we were talking about the first thing, that are these buildings looking different, unique? So when I talk to some people, they are very much in love of form exploration, that if we do form explorations, we have resolved the problem of Banal. But when I ask people outside, they were fine. I mean, you do form explorations or not, it does not make much difference for them. And when I ask about the context around, then as everyone told here also, it is fine if the context is the buildings around are different, or the buildings around follow the similar typology. Does not make that much difference to them, but it did make a lot of difference for some people. Like if that building is not standing out, then it's not a good building. You have not made a good design. But for outside people, it's fine. And when we talked about this question, that same set people who were saying कि नहीं building should stand out, now that same people are saying no, this building is not looking good, it's not going with the context. So is it because we have like preconceived notions or expectations from context, and if that expectations don't match, then we are like, we don't get settled, and so that's why we think that no, this is boring, this is Banal. So like, does its only visual monotony or context also matters? Then obviously I asked, what do you like more, Sindhu Bhavan or Old City? So Sep likes Old City more, outside people like Sindhu Bhavan more. So when I asked that why you like Old City, majority of Sep people told that they like Old City because of the carvings, the motifs, the lively character, which we were talking right now. But when I asked it to non-Sep, they told that it's heritage. So they also think that it's because it has tag of heritage. They like it. So they like it as a tourist perspective, but not to live there. And when I asked about Sindhu Bhavan, Sep people told that because these buildings they are making it Western-like, it's something different. We are trying to approach globalization. But interesting observation was that outside people don't think these buildings are Western-like. So is it that we have accepted those buildings for our fabric also, and we don't find it any more Western-like? Or maybe outside people don't find it Western-like, but we still think that this does not belong to us. We belong to like Old City. We should focus on climate and local material and heritage. So yeah, this was. So here also I had an interesting observation that the people who said they don't like outside people, they like Sindhu Bhavan more, but they were not that confident for bluntly saying that they don't like Old City. Is it because it's heritage, or do we think that it's Ahmedabad's identity? Because those same people were very simply said that they don't like Sindhu Bhavan on face. Is it because they don't think Sindhu Bhavan is Ahmedabad's identity? So is new architecture of Ahmedabad not relative, and that's why we are able to comment on that, but we are not able to still comment on Old City that easily. So then I finally asked them कि आपको कैसा architecture पसंद है? So they told that they like local, contextual and climatic, but they just now told that they like Sindhu Bhavan more. So then I assume maybe it is like that they like to see Sindhu Bhavan because it gives them joy that we are developing, we are getting globalized. But when it comes to personal choice, they like climatic, they still like which responds to our culture or it's local. So when we were talking about the old thing, I also had a very interesting observation that when Alpha 1 was built in Ahmedabad, there was a drastic change of uses. अचानक सबने Himalaya Mall छोड़ दिया and people started using Alpha 1 because it was new. But when Palladium came into the play, still majority of people are using Alpha 1. That Palladium has not become that famous. So is making new buildings breaking the banality or giving new experience? I mean, when Alpha 1 came to Ahmedabad, it brought a new experience for people. We'd never seen such a big mall, brands, centrally AC, all these things together. But Palladium is not giving a new experience, just enhanced experience. And when we were talking about repetition, then people still said that repeating the flow, repeating the same form is making things banal. But when I asked to outside people, they told that the life here is more repeating and same kind of plan of all flats is problematic. That is repeating. So is it that we still focus on visual monotony, but outside people they find experiential monotony a problem? So what is more important then? What should we break first, visual monotony or experiential monotony? So when I asked them that if the life in the new apartments is boring, if lack of human interaction is a problem, majority of people said yes, the life is boring. But when I asked if new housing schemes are boring or not, then 50% of non-Sep told no, the housing schemes are fine, but the life is boring. Then I was like, is house not just life for them, is something else also for them? So if lack of human interaction is a problem, then why not new housing scheme are boring? Is it because they even match housing with status? I mean, for them house is not just lifestyle, it's status also. These are all questions that you have answered. You can give me. I don't have any answer.
So incidentally, how many people did you ask when you are talking of outsiders?
For outside people, I asked 170, 180 people, and I even made Google Forms for responses. And for from CEPT, I guess I asked 70, 80 people.
And the set people, they are all architecture or
No.
non-architecture?
No. I asked from all the faculties.
Okay.
So yeah, there were change in responses from inter-faculty also. Like FT people and FP people, they like Sindhu Bhavan more. FA loves setting. FA loves carving. FA loves exposed brick. There was certain biases between FA, FT, FP also.
I also think another important question to ask would be, or distinguish between when you took answers, would be someone who's a local Andhra and someone who's a non-localite.
Most of the people were outside CEPT. You're saying inside CEPT I should take?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, for example, I love Old City, I absolutely love it. But I would never stay in Old City. It would never be my preference. And I'm not sure of the reason. I think the reason is not to do much with the visual monotony or the nature of space, but it's more to do with accessibility or the kind of resources that I would get in Old City versus the kind of resources I would find at Sindhu Bhavan Road. My parents, for example, they had recently visited me and they do not like the Old City at all. And because they are not locals, they're from Mumbai, they're not scared to say it out loud. They don't care, they find it absolutely horrible and they would never go to the Old City. By choice, they don't like to cross the river. So I also think the locals that you would have asked about the Old City and they're saying it's heritage and they like it, there's also like a moral pressure because you are staying in the city and if you say that the Old City is not good or not beautiful, people would look at you a certain way.
If somehow we solve the issue of accessibility and if we are able to retrofit certain brands in the Old City, will you be fine living in those houses?
Definitely. So I, for 1.5 months I spent in Gwalior, in the Old City of Gwalior. My Masi stays there and the roads are pretty good. They're pretty wide. There are local shops where you get all the resources you need.
So you will be okay living in a bedroom which opens into a courtyard or most of the time whatever is happening inside the bedroom or playing a loud music.
To me personally it's not a problem. To my family it might be. But if I'm staying alone I would be okay with it.
I think also on the other hand, even though people who give answers also saying that Old City is a heritage or for any other reason they like it, even if localized or otherwise, if the question was changed and asked whether they would still live in it, I think most of them would say no, whether it is
Yeah,
or
that
outside.
I observed. That's why I told that they like Old City as a tourist. Like if I take my mom only, she grew up in Old City, so she has like a very much love and nostalgia for Old City. But now she has become like comfortable living here. So now if I did ask her that, will you go back? She said no, she won't go back. She would still go to festivals. So she is also now become like a tourist. She will go when there are some festivals or occasion, but not go to live there. Maybe sometimes I do feel we talk here a lot about it, like low rise, lively, lively, the gullies and all that. Maybe we also go there as tourists only. No? We don't live there. We don't know the hardships people face.
And I think even though if they are retrofitted or the quality of amenities, or they just like getting drinking water or the cleanliness of these places, even though that is improved. I think because since we have shifted to this globalized city life, which is more comfortable, and like the idea of living in a high rise where you can look onto the city and the escapes around from just your window, just because that familiarity has developed now. I think still then, even though the lifestyle quality can be the same, one would still be hesitant to shift back to that.
So I have a question. If we come out of high rise, we are not able to see people, right? We don't see people. When we come out of a low rise, like in our city, we are able to see people. What would you like more? I don't have answer.
You mean when you walk out of the front door of your house? Yes.
Even front door, even balconies or terraces, when we come out from high rise, I can see a good view, but I'm not able to see any kind of activities or people. Maybe some people would be liking that, but when I come out from low rise or bungalows, for example, I do find people, I do find activities around. Though I don't talk with them, but I'm still able to see some dynamic going on. From high rise, if I come out, not that much dynamic view I get. So, what would you prefer?
I would prefer the first one. But I can also imagine cases where someone wants to live their lifestyle on their own, isolated. They have their life outside just their immediate community, like the housing community. So they seek their enjoyment or meeting of people still. It's not like they want to be isolated from the entire world, but just from they don't find their, maybe they don't like their neighbors, so they get a choice of at least not interacting. So, but in a housing society, like the low-rise housing, you need neighbors. If they're really good, then you would enjoy talking to them. But if you have that problem, you still don't have a choice of not of avoiding them.
But I agree, like when the model of a natural housing like university came into place several years ago, like we talked about in the previous discussion, the idea of work and home, like the gap between work and home, like work being a separate place from your home was very different. Like a lot of work used to happen at home, and hence, typically the woman of the house would stay in the house, and there'll be kids or a lot of people who would be staying in the house for a longer time. So there would be people who would want this interaction, but then now that most of the members of the house are working, or even the kids that are going to school or extracurricular activities, they're not necessarily always inside their home, and they get their social interaction with people outside. So maybe some people, and they're getting more busier, so maybe some people would prefer this way where they don't have to interact with their neighbors because they are getting their share of socialization outside.
Yeah, I think it differs. To add on to that, previously the communities were built such a way that you had to seek help from others to run your house. You could not do it on your own. Now that everything is outside bought and everything is pre-packaged and delivered to you, you don't need to ask help from anybody. I think that is why it has become boring, but we cannot, we can't do anything about it. That is where the difference is from old city. If पुराने ज़माने में भी, if somebody was delivering everything packaged and you don't have to ask help from your neighbor, I think you would have been the same. Because the houses are still closed, but we're still not talking to our neighbors now. Because we don't actually need them. That time we had to stay together as a world to survive.
But maybe the significance is reduced, but we still require needs for it. Like maybe you get a parcel when you're not at home and you need someone to collect it. It would be very nice if you had a neighbor who could collect it for you. Maybe the significance is reduced, but I think we've not completely lost it.
Yeah, we've not completely lost it, but then, that can still be resolved. You can still ask somebody else to collect your parcel, not necessarily
But also from her questions, when she mentioned that 50% of the outside people also wanted interactions in their neighborhood.
More than actually 67 point something people, they wanted human interaction. Not like if they don't get to talk, at least they wanted to see humans.
But what kind of age group that comes under this category? Because if they are above like 35 or retired people, they will need some interaction. They will need to see someone outside.
Then we are making housing just for young people.
No, but I think what she's extending is, so for example, if I run out of milk, I will never go ask my neighbor, I'll just Instamart it. So because of resources and because of apps that give you the resource of not socializing or socializing according to my own will, it has led to people so basically our age group or a little older to not want to have that human interaction. But so like for my parents who don't know how to use Instamart or who find it more tedious than asking a neighbor, for them it is important to have neighbors.
Then why CEPT people also said that they want human interaction? I mean CEPT is the RH. Outside people, okay, there was a variety from my age group to...
I think it's inbuilt that we have to have some human interaction in our designs. We can't just make us a monotonous blind design. Subjective. Also
They are saying they like old city, right?
But I would just like to steer the discussion back to monotony, or which is what is or the Banal, right? Simply because our afternoon session is about neighborhood and community, where we'll be going into more depth of what is the need for a neighborhood or a community, social interaction as such. Is it required?
I feel as an architect, for us, experiential monotony is the place where we have to explore and not only visual monotony. Personally, I feel that this is an area that we all must at least try to explore, because that is what plays major roles for non-architects and architects as well. That will add value to somebody's life. So, I feel that is where we have to explore.
In that context, you said that many people said that life is monotonous. What could you share a bit more about what they meant by that? That life has become monotonous.
Like if we talk about new housing, then first reason they said that all the houses have same plan. So though we see it as plan, but when I make a plan of the house, I'm regulating their activities or the circulation. So same kind of experience or activities happening throughout. Then the other reason was that the amenities which we say nowadays, that same kind of amenities or same kind of leisure, like we don't have even the variety, the kind of leisure also we are having right now is same. If I want to get break from college, where I'll go? Ahmedabad has nothing to offer apart from cafes. Maybe that's why we like Sindhu, because all the cafes are there. I don't know. So kind of leisure, kind of amenities. I'm not just talking about at the level of housing, but even at the level of city. The kind of, as you said that now we have work cars and then ghar. So work cars maybe would be same for everyone. But what about the ghar part? Maybe that can be different, no? Because already we are having monotony job mein though. Then if we give ghar also, that only ki bhai sabka same. So maybe that's why they feel that entire life is only boring, because their entire day schedule is very much same every day. There's no variety.
So are they saying that my life is the same as my neighbor's life and therefore life is monotonous? Or mine today and my tomorrow is the same and therefore life is monotonous? Or both? Because you're talking about both right now.
Something that the schedule of every day is kind of same. And on the weekends also, kind of schedule is same only. Though we say it's off from the work, but the kind of leisure is also kind of same. So one was that, and the other was that we enter, though we are saying that we don't like humans or we don't like interaction, but even some kind of houses, they don't offer a break from, they give balcony, but maybe that also does not work, like giving a view or having some kind of interesting thing, which some small experiences or nostalgia which we can give, because we had a very interesting conversation in studio when we asked like what kind of nostalgias are connected to your house. Surprisingly, most of the people said about their village ka ghar or their another house. No one gave, very less people gave examples of the new housing where they are living. So if I am not able to create a nostalgia or an experience which I want to remember for my entire life or for like a longer period of time, then isn't the experience not that good? That's why only I'm not making memories. I don't know. I'm just.
Also, and like it's a very nasty perspective, but wouldn't like say there are two kinds of experience from monotony, like you said. One is my today and tomorrow is the same, and one is my today is the same as someone else's today. But how do we, like I feel the question of my today is the same as my neighbor's today is comparatively easier to address. But then how do we address the fact of how I can change my today and tomorrow while living in the same?
See, that's our challenge. Because at a time, if my neighbor's life would be same like me, maybe it won't bother me that much. Because I don't like literally care that much कि उसका मेरा life same है. But मेरा ही रोज same है, then I will care. So maybe that's our challenge then. Because that's why I focus on visual monotony, because it's easy to break. I mean, I can do form play, I can make some must building, but
the experience also, then the question comes, should we break it? You also need a certain sense of familiarity or routine in your life to make sure that you experience a different experience at some point. So then how often or should you break it? Like, if my day changes every day also, maybe I find it chaotic and I'm not able to organize. I mean, if for example you go for a picnic, you don't go for a picnic every day. You go for a picnic on a weekend or sometime in a year or vacation.
So that's
why
why
you find the joy.
Incidences, not every day. I mean, it's like grey. Either same or either every day.
But you are saying that some amount of monotony is necessary, or else your life would become like really jittery and
very unpredictable and unstable.
I also think if you're talking about like an individual's monotony, it is different for different people. Like when I used to stay with my grandparents, because of their schedule, their life was monotonous, but mine was not. Because you don't control activities in a house. You can stop certain activities, but you can't govern that this will happen. People use their houses in all sort of ways. So I think that monotony is also very individual specific even in a family. Like my father, he likes to spend more time in the living room, but I don't. But it's not like if I spend time in my bedroom, it's monotonous to me. I'm just saying that even in a family, there are different definitions of monotony. So then, are we still trying to break it, or is it
so? I'm like, we can't control. Our aim should not be to control. Because if I use the word control, then again it's dominating, or I'm dominating my ideas on them. But as a designer, maybe our job is to enhance. We think all this when we build a museum or a school, that how will I create a good experience? How will I enhance when they enter into the space? Why don't we talk about this when it comes to oxygen? So that's the question. Like, we always like school or museum, we talk, ऐसा बनाते ये experience. But no one talks about how it's like that.
I would like to go back to that. You are right in saying that some form of, I mean, if nothing is monotonous, then it might become too jittery. So I was just wondering about the difference between routine and monotonous. That some form of routine is crazy. And I was wondering when in the previous presentation Swar was showing the Jama Masjid, in architecture also, what is the difference between routine and monotonous? Because routine I can relate to rhythm, which the Jama Masjid has. So is there something different between something rhythmic or something that is routine and something that is monotonous? both of which are using repetition as a strategy, but one feels monotonous, but the other is giving you some rhythm in life or some rhythm in application. And that's why in examples also some forms of repetition appear banal and some forms of repetition don't, because there is something in that routine.
And also I think like the case of like the change in our lifestyle, like for example, like when housing projects have interiors done, you have a choice that maybe after a few years, if you don't like the way your house is in terms of like, you have a swing for 5 years and after a point you want a fountain. You're changing like the things that are there in your house that makes it different. How much value does that over to like associate nostalgia, like you said, with village houses or the other lifestyle? That in that mostly the house remains constant through a lot of years. It is static for a lot. So then what is that factor that is making it interesting despite it being a routine lifestyle?
Because we only go to our village during our vacation.
So that is I meant from, I mean not just our generation but our previous generations also.
I think it's the life around the house that made it more interesting.
When I think in today's context, a lot of developers have whatever housing is that the monotony is a constant for them as well. They're trying to sell what's around the landscape, the life which you have on the ground and etc. So I think the monotony is a established fact for them, I think. But they are not trying to break it in any way. They're just trying to sell what at max they can sell the landscape there. There's a lot of amenities they're trying to
To extend what he's saying, I think it's like as an architect, if you create something that is not monotonous, but over time it will become monotonous, right? If I create this tower twisting where all the floor plans are twisted, once I see 18-meter wide road, once I see 132-meter wide road, and other time I see central open space. But over time when it's rotating 365 days, it's all going to be monotony for me. So it's I think it's the time factor also that we need to consider. If we break the monotony, but until what time it will not be monotonous to the user.
Can it be like someone told that Banal is when it's finished, it can't grow, we cannot do anything or changes that? Why do we think that we cannot make any change, we cannot grow the houses?
So as an architect, I think we don't have a control on the monotony factor, but suppose landscape, trees, these are not monotonous, they grow over time, they die over time. So I think it's not the architecture, but its context and its surrounding also tries to make an architecture not monotonous.
I think when you say that the building's rotating 360, if I'm looking at the building from outside, yes, it will be monotonous. It's
But
going
for the
down.
user, yeah.
But if I'm staying inside one of those houses, I don't think it will be monotonous at all. Every day you see a different view. And it will come only once a year. So then it becomes special. Every morning you wake up and there's a different view that you see. I don't think it's monotonous.
Also in comparison, when we are talking about full city and the housing that has been built in the newer part of cities, regulation is something which is bringing monotony. The way we are talking about monotony, that is I think coming out of regulation. While here in old city we have freedom to expand the houses to a certain point, to keep on changing them as per our purpose. That is something exactly which is not possible, or maybe till date not made possible for certain reasons. So I think regulations is the
I think that's a good segue for next presentation, since we might run out of time, right? So the next presentation is taking monotony into
what is unique residential building according to me. And here are the aspects and characteristics which makes residential apartment buildings in materials, projections, shapes, quality of lights, openings, sequence of space, organization, orientations of building, volumetric spaces, and many more. So here are some examples.
Sorry?
this building 25 Green, situated in Italy. It is unique in terms of its experiential qualities and juxtaposition of its material. So this building is the Interlace in Singapore, unique in terms of its massive modules. So here, there is a typical plan going on the same module, but what he changes is massing, which makes itself the building unique. So this building is unique in terms of its form. This building is unique in terms of its connecting sky bridges and open to sky balconies. So in sky bridges, the community of the two towers comes together, and there are the community space on this bridge, and then there is this open to sky balcony. Here, this building is unique in terms of its vertical green facade. Here, this building is in Taiwan, and which is unique in terms of its double helical form. So there is a typical floor plan which is running in the helical form, with having a 270-degree open view on the three sides. That's why this building is unique. So Habitat 67. This building is unique in terms of its modular design and brutalist aesthetics. So Penda's residential tower in Israel. Here the architect has two floor plates with having a cascading brick arches, which makes the spaces volumetric and which is repeated on each of the other, and which makes itself a unique building. Here, the Walden 7 by Ricardo Bofill. This building is unique in terms of its numerous open to sky courtyards, walkways, and communal areas, fostering a sense of community amongst its residents. So now, this was the broader definition of the unique building according to me. Now, what is conventional residential buildings? So what makes conventional residential, what are the aspects which make conventional residential buildings? Minimalist design, widespread use in urban context, unremarkable aesthetics, building codes, common design elements, cost effective, time constraints, underwhelming presence, and functional focus. This makes the building more conventional. So here are the examples of the conventional buildings. And here I have taken the examples of the townships, which are mostly being made in the conventional way, because it is largely producing the houses. So here are these monotonous, banal facades, which are building in the real time. Then I have made a collage where there are all monotonous buildings and there is one unique building, which makes this building unique in the collage. Then what if all the unique buildings come together and there is this one conventional building in it, which itself can be a unique building in this whole collage. So after that, why are there very less unique residential building in Ahmedabad, and what are the reasons behind it? So I talked to some developers of Ahmedabad, and here they were talking about the cost, expense, the time of construction, lack of technologies and advancement, which is not possible, and which is not being possible to make a unique building in Ahmedabad, like we have shown the examples like that. And here I was talking that what was the prominent reason, and in the conversation with each other, he has said an interesting thing, that they want to implement a BIM software BIM system in his own residential schemes. But what they were facing is that the hierarchy from top to bottom is having a lack of study in the BIM system. So the upper hierarchy knows the system, upper hierarchy knows the system. But what about the lower hierarchy? What about the labor? They can't get into the system very quickly. And that are the main reasons why there are very less unique building in the Ahmedabad. Then I have talked with many others, and they were talking, and I showed them a presentation, and I saw that these are the unique buildings. What if this came in Ahmedabad? Then the reaction was that first of all the maintenance. the people of Ahmedabad is the mentality of the people of Ahmedabad is very cost oriented. So if you give certain kind of experience, if you give certain kind of aesthetics, but if you don't give that aesthetics and that experience in a certain value, then they will neglect that experience and aesthetics and will go in the conventional type of by buying a conventional type of a housing. And here I talked about with Nyasa group. I talked with them and they were telling that I was talking about the vertical green facade on the outer periphery. It will be an interesting thing. It will be a unique in context of Ahmedabad. Then he told me that what about the people residing in? The mentality of people is like that. Every once in a week, twice a day in a week, maintenance, a gardener comes and it will trim the facade, and that whole chunk will be moved from your houses, and that all kind of nuisance people doesn't want that all kind of nuisance, whether you give the super experience to them, but people want a simple thing and which is very conventional, which is very easy to use. That's why this type of housing is being evolved, which is very user friendly, and that's why this kind of things are being developed in Ahmedabad. And here, after having an conversation with the developer, here are the which are the aspects other aspects through which people of Ahmedabad see residential housing rather than its experiential qualities and aesthetics. First of all, affordability. People in Ahmedabad consider their budget constraints and look for properties that match their financial capability. Factors like future infrastructure development, neighborhood growth area taken into account as an investment. Housing is to be seen from the investment perspective also. So modern amenities, sustainability, community, location, builders profitability, resale value, vastu and cultural beliefs. These all are the aspects which are people are considering other than the experiential qualities and the aesthetics. So one of the recent examples that nowadays what people are doing is buying a flat in a developing area. Let's take an example of buying a flat of 50 lakhs in a developing area. After that, the person will stay for 5 years in that flat, and he will invest. After 5 years, he will sell this house and he will invest in the other house. So the gain profit will be invested in that businesses also. So nowadays, people are changing their mindset. Many of them are changing their houses like this. Every 5 years, they change their houses. They live in the developing areas. They get familiar with them, more amenities, more ways to get connect with the new areas and new things to them. So here are my questions which I observed from the developer's perspective. What are the ways to overcome the cost challenges of the constructing unique residential building in Ahmedabad? So how can the construction process be streamlined to reduce the time it takes to construct unique buildings? Because unique buildings sometimes takes more time to construct. And what are some ways to reduce the risk of developers who are considering constructing unique buildings? How can we encourage developers to think outside the box and create more innovative and sustainable building designs? What are the challenges associated with maintaining unique residential buildings? And here is my question, that as an architect, how should we prioritize this aspect related to constructing unique building in context of Ahmedabad? So here are these aspects and how we should prioritize as an architect. We should have a priority of affordability. If affordability is not being cared as an architect, then the house will not be in use. Then what is the need of that making that building or making that house in a certain way, in a certain uniqueness, in a certain experience? So here are these major aspects. So how we should prioritize? That's it.
Can you go back one step? One more. So now, I mean, some questions that came in my mind while you were presenting is that banality question. Is it only architects that who are asking this question, and that for depending on who is buying the house and for what, maybe for them it is not a big deal. Like if I pick up on some, so if I look at house as an investment or resale value, so I'm almost looking at it like a stock market, which means I have to pick it up at low price and sell it at high price.
But people are looking like that from that perspective in housing.
So if I build something special, तो उसका initial price ही ज़्यादा होगा, तो उसमें invest करने का कोई मतलब नहीं है ना? Why should I buy a stock at high price? If I'm primarily investing, I should pick up, like you're saying, कोई चांदखेड़ा में अभी घर खरीद रहा है because they feel, or Science City के edge में खरीद रहा है because they feel that after 10 years I can sell it for premium. Which means when I'm buying it, I don't want it at premium. Why would I buy at premium because I make less profit? Maybe that's why when you say that Ahmedabadis are like cost conscious, that if you give them something special, but if you're charging 20% premium, you're saying they'll not buy it.
They will buy the other house. Then the જે મહેનત કરી હોય બનાવવામાં આપણે આર્કિટેક્ચરના બધા પોઈન્ટ્સ નાખ્યા હોય બધી વસ્તુ પછી હવે ત્યાં રહેવાનું નથી માણસ તો પછી એ વસ્તુનો બિલ્ડિંગ યુઝમાં જ નથી એટલે એ આસ્પેક્ટ એઝ એન આર્કિટેક્ટ ના કે ખાલી આ આસ્પેક્ટ પણ આ એક આસ્પેક્ટ બી એક છે કે જે આઈ થિંક એઝ એન આર્કિટેક્ટ કન્સિડર થવો જોઈએ.
No, so what are you trying to hint at from that? If don't make it unique if it means extra cost, or you're saying that this whole unique business is
no,
just architects enjoying talking about non-banal and non-monotony.
એટલે આટલું મતલબ વાત કરવાથી બધું સર્વે કરવાથી એમાંથી એ ખબર પડી કે જે સ્ટેપમાં કમ્યુનિટી બિલ્ડ થાય છે ને એની મેન્ટાલિટી ડેવલપ થતી જાય છે જેમ જેમ આપણે 10 વર્ષના બી સ્પાન લઈએ ને હાઉસિંગમાં તો 10 વર્ષ પહેલાના પ્લાનિંગ અને 10 વર્ષ પછીના પ્લાનિંગ એટલે એ એની મેન્ટાલિટી ચેન્જ થતી જાય છે એ રીતે આપણે પણ આપણે જો ફોર એક્ઝામ્પલ આફ્ટર 40 યર્સનું એ બિલ્ડિંગ મૂકી દઈએ અહીંયા અમદાવાદમાં અને પછી એ વસ્તુ આપણે એક્સપેક્ટ કરીએ કે આ લોકો આવી રીતે વાપરે ભલે આપણે એ વસ્તુ સારી રીતે બનાવીએ પણ એ મેન્ટાલિટી પ્રમાણે જો ચાલે એ પ્રમાણે થોડું થોડું યુનિક કરતા જઈએ અને પછી એ લેવલે પહોંચે તો ઇઝ અ મોર બેટર વે ટુ થિંક.
And you think we should think with the pace of market, or do you think that we should exceed the pace and then play?
No, we should pace.
So I'm just saying from a perspective where if you look at the span of housing and the way in which people think or change. So let's say earlier people used to change their mind after 30 years. Then there was a time when they thought that even that time cycle is not less than 50 years. Then 10. 5 years is still like one can call it a long for investment perspective because that's still a if my money is not rotated within 1 or 2 years, I will have other repercussions. One would like even shorter cycle transactions per se. And for example, if people who have elder brothers or elder sisters, with a span of 3 or 4 years, the way they think, the way you think.
No. There is a difference. Yes.
So like if we say that if I design for my elder brother, it will not work for me. If I design for myself, it will not work for my younger brother or younger sister also. So what is it? I'm saying from designer's perspective. What is the? I mean, I'm also. It's not a.
Yes.
This thing to ask you in general.
But I think that was the reason where standardization came into the play. That's why we feel that all buildings are similar, all buildings are monotone because we as a housing scheme many people from different mentality, different culture comes together. How we can cater of each individual as an as an house કે આ હાઉસ છે તો આ કલ્ચરના લોકો આ હાઉસમાં હવે અને એટલે જ મેં એક્ઝામ્પલ ટાઉનશીપ્સના બધા કે જ્યાં ડિફરન્ટ મેન્ટાલિટીના લોકો આવે છે तो इन्हें केटर करवा माटे बधाना मतलब उसको केटर करने के लिए सबके एस्पेक्ट्स जनरलाइज करने पड़ते हैं.
So I think Pushpendra, that would be, so if you're talking of flexibility or variation, that we would pick up in the immediate next session. But I think the conversation right now and what interesting point you're bringing is you're saying कि slowly ratchet up the way you keep giving buildings so that society keeps demanding slightly newer and newer things. You are arguing that if you give something of this quality, when the rest of it is here, then no one will purchase it and therefore you have not met the objective. If you feel that Ahmedabad is at this level in terms of quality of building, build something 5% better and next building 5%. And in that context, don't make something completely unique. Like some of the examples you were showing earlier, that you are saying that it might be too risky, or if it is too much more expensive than what the other builder is giving, then no one will buy.
Because what I was experiencing is that in the earlier times, people built their own houses. That's why they cater all their problems in the planning, in each and everything. But where the problem comes is the land, the cost of land is very high. So people are not affording to have an individual house on an individual plot. But now people are tend to get an higher living, on a vertical living. So at that point they have compromised that his all qualities. Then they have to set in the standards of the given housing which are being provided to them.
I'm just thinking also, like, if the alternative to increasing step by step is the immediate jump, maybe what if that immediate jump makes it like that project is very unique and therefore it's a status symbol that certain people would seek it. Maybe it might not be economical at initial level, so initially the higher class of the society would seek it or be able to afford it, and slowly then it starts changing that people raise their standards to reach that unique building.
Like you were only talking about a scheme happening in Ahmedabad where a flat worth 15 or 17 crore. It is not of affordability then. Still people are buying it.
That, see, the span of selling that scheme is it's now 8 years. There is also one flat remaining to be sold out.
He won't make but 70 crore ka.
That's what he's saying. तो ये तो कहूँ step by step.
That gave an idea कितना महंगा बन सकता है अहमदाबाद में. So I started making it महंगा.
No, so I think there's a share market based analogy. So doing that, but the investment thing got me thinking. So when you are doing investment, there is something called value investing and growth investing. People who believe in growth investing, they will buy a very expensive share also, because they feel it will grow even further.
Yes.
Value investing is where you look for undervalued stocks and invest in them because you feel that its value would increase. So some people think that, like if I look at in the art world, someone is buying that Amrita Shergill painting sold for 80 crores. They are buying it because they are thinking I'll sell it for 100 crores. So here is an investor who is not bothered about the initial cost because they see the growth potential. And there's another kind of investor who is not interested in that, but is interested in buying a cheap house and selling it.
એવા ટાઈપના લોકો બહુ ઓછા છે એરિયામાં કે એ ટાઈપનું.
No, but as such, I mean, if we just look at the painting scenario, even arts, you will find all range of artists thriving and doing whatever they are doing. You will find Anish Kapoor selling things at 100 of crores a sculpture, and he still can find many more people to sell that one, and that also gets into auction. So it's not like scarcity of that much versus like people even who sell is still being sold. There are so many people who will still into that game. Versus there are people who are actually selling paintings at 1,000 rupees, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 rupees. So everybody is getting a share. Everybody is having their own market. Maybe little bit here and there, or there are times the way we perceive. We think कि ये तो existing the way like earlier. If you ask me 10 years before, I will not say that there Ahmedabad can absorb an apartment which is worth 5 crore. I'll say it doesn't seem like it is much. 2 years later, you know that it's being done. You are doing it, and then you say no, if this 5 can actually go to 12 also. You still find same people who were earlier scared to put 50 lakhs. The same people coming up and say 5 crore take it. So it's not just this or that. It is also, I mean, I don't know. I'm also.
But ये प्लेटफॉर्म बता भी मतलब वो प्लेटफॉर्म हमने दिखाया लोगों को कि ये तक भी जा सकता है, तो फिर लोगों ट्राई करेंगे. फिर 1 2 3 4
धीरे दिखाओगे तो क्या? That's what my question. मैं आज थोड़ा दिखाऊं, कल थोड़ा सा दिखाऊं, थोड़ा versus I say that this is there. 50 साल भी लगते तो भी क्या फर्क? I'm just sharing like what? Why should I? कि let's say if you were in the mission of doing this step by step, in between if we die, then that will stay there.
No, it will go.
Who will?
Some other.
No, but I don't want to rely on it. I'm just saying I understand this is a whole job of community and it will happen. But for example, if I want to see it in my life, if that is my personal, one can say selfish greed or intention or whatever, that I would prefer to see this. It may not reach there, but let's say if that's something, then what should be our?
I think it's a lot to do with the risk-taking capacity of the developer. That if I am a developer and I am having 8 projects, I'll build something that's one or 2 projects that are exclusive, or it may take 5 to 10 years to get along with there or to reach there. And I have certain amount of projects that are almost at par with the market, so that I get the ball rolling. I think it's a very developer-oriented decision to make.
So what I wanted to point out earlier is also is that see exactly what is happening right now in the session also, that once we get into this question of investment or affordability, suddenly monotony का सवाल गायब हो जाता है कि we have moved into a different realm. So I am asking, is it that only when architects sit together and discuss urban housing, monotony or banal is the biggest question, and the moment we start broad basing that discussion, because for me your presentation is interesting, you start with monotony, and because you talk to developers about monotony, you are coming back with different opinions about monotony. Okay, what about monotony in relation to affordability or investment or vastu or location, etc., etc. And suddenly that pedestal is going down, and we don't realize how we get into a different conversation altogether.
But I think there is money which is about architecture, because money is the factor for people and not the architecture. Because we are architects as an architecture as an priority, and money as an not priority for us.
But I think
If you need to say for unique projects, do you think that affordability is a problem? Right? I mean, if somebody is set up to do a project which is not standardized or offering something, that person is usually keeping that cost and everything in mind. Then and then somebody will do it. Then they'll not say, I want to finish this in 1,500 rupees per square feet or 1,800 rupees per square feet. You know that it is going to cross 5,000 rupees per square feet or even more. And then you also take some future, you also consider that people might not buy at first go. I may have to stay with this product for 3 years in order to sell it completely or something. So that cost is considered. I'm saying. So in that case, maybe affordability may have a little. I'm not saying it will go out of the question, but it will be having a little weaker leg to play the game.
Yes.
Because then, if I'm offering a 8,000 rupee, 8 crore apartment, it would be 8 crore apartment or 15 or whatever X amount is there. Then, thing is you cannot sell what you are doing. You can't just sell that same 1500 rupees per square feet construction. You can't, because that person is not fool.
Yes.
You will not pay that, right? You need to. Why do we go to five-star hotels and resorts and things like that? Why do we even go for iPhone? Anything which is exclusive. What do we call luxury? Or anything. I'm not saying luxury is not an appropriate word, but something which is pushing something, which is slightly leading the game of
the general market. Yes.
I think it's the lifestyle which people are like they're staying here, but then they aspire to move into something bigger or some different. It's the lifestyle they're buying. Because of that, it keeps changing.
एक mindset as an human in today's world is after 5 years ગમે એવું યુનિક હશે ને બીજા યુનિક બનાવી દીધું તો એ એનાથી
like for example
that's the एज को मतलब वही बोल रहा हूँ कि वो चेंज होता ही रहेगा तो हमें वो चेंज का चेंज एज एन चेंज वी हैव टू अडेप्ट दैट चेंज के people want something new because as people grow their houses also the size of the houses the after having in certain level of income people build their own bungalow where is all what we say his all needs have been fulfilled in a bungalow. Why then he will live in a flat or a housing apartment?
But छोटा सा एग्जांपल दूँ, if architects we are architects, अपना रूम क्या हो सकता है मे बी अगर मनी को साइड में रखें तो एक एग्जांपल देता हूँ. देयर वर यूट्यूब वीडियोस 1 घंटे के यूट्यूब वीडियोस थे वो धीरे धीरे 15 मिनट्स पे आए अब 15 सेकंड की रील्स पे है अब 5 सेकंड की रील भी नहीं देखी जाती. बट देन देयर आर पीपल जो पॉडकास्ट को लेके आए पॉडकास्ट को उन्होंने इंटरेस्टिंग इतना बनाया कि अब लोग वापस से 1 घंटे का पॉडकास्ट देखते हैं. तो इन अ वर्ल्ड जो कि इस तरह से मोनोटोनी में मूव कर रहा है तो आप कुछ ऐसा भी एक नीश लेके आ सकते हो विच कैन क्रिएट सम काइंड ऑफ डिफरेंस. जो लोग 1 घंटे का पॉडकास्ट देखें तो ऐसा कुछ हो सकता है कि जो यूनिक भी हो और आपकी डे टू डे जो भी प्रॉब्लम्स आ रही है मनी हो गया फाइनेंसेस हो गया उसको भी डील करें.
Building on the same thing actually slightly deviating from it. When we are talking about the vocabulary of investment as in a stock market, the people who are investing in stock market are not actually controlling the whatever they are investing into. But when we are talking about housing, when people are investing, they are also controlling each and everything that is happening in that housing. That is exactly where someone is not there at that decision-making position, that the investment will be investment, it will grow, but the life of the people in the housing would stay as it is. I think that is where the rental housing actually comes into the perfect fit, where people invest and when people live, and housing and investment stays separate but are still mixed.
But इसमें एक एग्जांपल कोई भी छोटा इंसान हो जो अभी मतलब एट द इनिशियल स्टेज उसकी 15,000 सैलरी हो तो उसके लिए नया पता है क्या हुआ कि जब भी उसकी 30,000 सैलरी होगी ना तो वो 30,000 सैलरी का जितना भी वो पर्सपेक्टिव में जितने भी हाउसिंग होगा ना वो उसके लिए नया होगा पर वो 30,000 वाले के लिए वो 45,000 के 40,000 नया होगा तो वो हायरार्की बिल्ड होती जाती है स्टेप बाय स्टेप. अगर मैं एज एन इन्वेस्टर मैंने इन्वेस्ट किया एक फ्लैट में विच इज वर्थ ₹50 लाख बट मेरे पीछे भी पूरी हायरार्की चल रही है और मेरे आगे भी पूरी हायरार्की चल रही है तो वो अडेप्ट करेंगे फिर उसके बाद वो अडेप्ट करेंगे फिर उसके बाद वो अडेप्ट करेंगे इसलिए वो अडेप्शन तो चलता ही जाएगा.
I was thinking that in terms of design choices, if you think affordability wise, like one of the developers said that a lush green facade is a lot to maintain. But on the other hand, modern amenities which have green manicured lawns or water bodies like fountains and swimming pools. These are also very high cost maintenance for a person, even though, so when they're buying it immediately, they're not able to realize that cost maintenance, but when they start living in a housing society, they have to pay maintenance costs regularly over their lifestyle to maintain it. So that is still a cost of affordability, even though it's been continuously prevalent. So then how much can we question the affordability? Like what do we consider the affordability as?
So I think
just a question.
I think it's an important question. And maybe some of the afternoon session papers or presentations might talk about it. I just want to tie it back to the question of monotony, because that is how you started this. And again, it's an open question for everyone. Do you think that when we talk of visual monotony, invariably it comes with an extra cost, but it's possible to break experiential monotony at no extra cost? So when as architects we are dealing with monotony, are we only looking at an expensive way of breaking the monotony? That is something that an architect can ask themselves. But so anyways, I think in the interest of time, so we'll have to move on. We'll take a short 15-minute break. The next session, the two presenters. So in the morning session, we started with monotony, banal, what is it, what are the different perspectives of it. The two immediate next presenters will talk about, as architects, what are the mechanisms by which we break it. Yeah? So we'll take a short 10-minute break. We have some presentations of analysis that students have done, and we have some visual GDCR and about that book of 500 plans and some interesting analysis if someone wants to see. We'll start at 11:30.